Welcome to Razor Branding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hi, welcome back to the Razor Branding Podcast. This is it, y'all. This is National Podcast Day, and we are on an all-day podcast marathon. We started really early before the sun came up, and we're going all the way to midnight, and every hour we are talking to a different local nonprofit about what they do, how they do it, and how we can support them in this time of pandemic pivots and making sure they have the necessary funds to keep going. You know, they all had events get canceled, and their donation has dried up as their needs have increased because more and more people need the support of these local nonprofit organizations. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Ben Broussard and Catholic Charities of Acadiana. Ben, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about how, wait, hold on, we're waiting for Ben to get on. He's going to click in. Me? Yeah, well, I'm waiting for Michael to flip the switch so we can see you. There you are.
There we go.
Thanks, Mike. That was very nice. So, Ben, welcome to the show. Tell us about Catholic Charities. What is Catholic Charities of Acadiana?
Sure. Look, it's great to be here. I love that we can see each other. This is great. Technology. I love it. So Catholic Charities of Acadiana, we're an organization that's been around since 1973. And traditionally, our services that we provide to the community have been focused in on those who are experiencing hunger, homelessness, and poverty. So those kind of services within a traditional scope of a social organization like ours would be St. Joseph Diner, which is our traditional soup kitchen. We serve several meals a day to those who are experiencing hunger. We also have several sheltering operations. So if somebody is finding themselves in that experience of homelessness, and I'm saying outside of this pandemic, this kind of new normal that we're in, that we would work to provide a place of safety for them. Just knowing that being inside is far safer than being outside. And so Lafayette has, as any growing city, we have to address that issue of homelessness, of, what is our responsibility to help somebody when they're in this crisis. We have several shelters. We have St. Michael's Center for Veterans, which is a program that is catered to those specific needs of those who have fought for our country, who have trained and given their lives to preserve our freedoms. And so there are, thankfully, there are benefits built in to those who have served. And so we help these individuals who are experiencing that crisis to navigate those benefits, to get back on their feet quicker. We have other programs that are attached to Catholic Charities that are, some are a little more new, but some sometimes come as a surprise to individuals who think, well, I'm not sure why this would play with a charitable organization. One would be disaster response. You typically think, well, Red Cross, organizations like Salvation Army, they respond to disaster. Why would an organization like Catholic Charities invest in a team to respond to disaster? Few reasons. One is that we live in Disaster Alley. And so it's not if a disaster is going to hit, it's when. We're not immune to disaster, but we're kind of veteran. If you live in South Louisiana, you've gone through a handful of them. But at the end of the day, those who are experiencing poverty, those who don't have the natural family supports and insurance and safety nets, they stand to suffer at a disproportionate level when disaster does strike. It's not as easy for them to turn around and rebuild and kind of move on with their life. As evidenced by, it was over 4 years ago that our area here in South Louisiana suffered a 500-year flood. That's what the estimates of what the meteorologists and those historians have said is doesn't happen more than every 500 years. So it was 4 years plus that we finally finished our last flood home. And so you think about news cycles. People move past these disasters. They're hurt by it. They see it. Man, they're shaken up. A couple of weeks later, they move on. Other things jump into that to that news feed, and so those who have suffered, they can't move on. And so an organization like ours would step in and assist there. Also, we have actually, as of last year, we stepped into social enterprise. The idea of opening up a business to provide support for a social organization, one that has programs that serves the public. So we were actually gifted a local bookstore that we have now changed into a social enterprise. So we're excited about that. But all of these programs at the end of the day reflect our mission statement to care for the sacred gift of life, but especially those who are most vulnerable in our community.
That is an amazing list of things that y'all have going on a regular basis. And then we add a pandemic to it. So what was that process like as you've had to shift gears? I would imagine it has changed your fundraising this year. Don't you usually have events to raise funds?
We sure do. And so that has made it tough. It sure has, Jackie. And I don't think that it's just us. I think that every nonprofit organization, and Lafayette has a lot of them. We're very community centered, community oriented here in Lafayette. But sure, it has made what we do a little harder. And so I'll kind of back you up to March of this year when it became apparent that we were going to have to change what we did as an organization. We were first thinking about those that we serve. Yes, about our staff and about the people that engage with our programs. But really, when you're thinking about someone who has gone through this experience of homelessness, especially those who have been homeless for months and years, it does a number on the body. It does a number on your immune system. Folks age quicker. Often make reference to those who are in very stressful jobs. You look at George W. Bush when he became president in the year 2000. 8 years later, I mean, he was gray. It just does. And so there's a lot of stress that those who experience homelessness, those who are in crisis on a daily basis experience. And so they are more susceptible to getting sick. They're more often immunocompromised. We have to look out for them. And so the idea, and I'll kind of pick on two of our programs here, St. Joseph Diner, which was a congregate eating experience where folks would come in, like Piccadilly Cafe. Okay, you go in and you grab a plate and everyone sits together. It's very hard to social distance. It's very hard to maintain those norms in that scenario. And so we had to find another way to provide food in a scenario like that, but also in our sheltering, which where the majority of our programs sit are at the corner of Simcoe and St. John in Lafayette, Louisiana, right off the corner of downtown. And so in our sheltering program, on a nightly basis, we were making sleeping arrangements available for between 80 to 120 individuals on a nightly basis. And a lot of that was considered low barrier shelter. If you had nowhere to go, if it was a choice between sleeping under in a bush, under an alcove, and sleeping inside, we wanted you to come in because we just knew that it was safer for you to sleep inside. And so that was some of it was summer camp style with bunk beds. Most of it was, we're going to move the furniture out of the way and we were going to lay out mats and we were going to give you a place to sleep. And we had done that for several years. And it was a real service to those who had nowhere else to turn. But it's hard to social distance with that when you're 6 inches next to the next person. And so we couldn't do that anymore. So for the first few months, what we did was we had to basically shut down our campus. We had to, and knowing that a lot of our programs, we had volunteers that we relied on. But we wanted to keep the individuals coming to our campus and leaving our campus at a super minimum, just to say we know who's coming in, we know who's leaving, but we wanted to provide a safe space for those who we were sheltering. And so what we did was we actually suspended service at St. Joseph Diner. We moved the tables and chairs out of the dining room, and we made additional sheltering space in there where we could separate those where folks were sleeping and provide that social distance. We kicked up the hand washing. We provided masks. That was a point where we were trying to figure out what was going to be the next step. Thankfully, the next step was a state-sponsored hotel program where folks who truly were experiencing homelessness were given accommodations where they could be in a non-congregate setting, and it was very safe for them. Food was provided for them there. But it leaves us in a position where what we have done for 40 years, it may not be able to be done like that in the future. So now we got to think, okay, in this new COVID era, until the federal government and CDC gets a real handle on this bug, how can we provide shelter in with what we have now? And so now we're evaluating doing renovations to our shelter and figuring out how can we create more space, do a non-congregate instead of that summer camp style setting, and really keep folks safe, because we have to be super careful. We do it every year for flu season. Flu season in a shelter, you don't want it. You don't want it in a long-term care facility. You don't want it in a hospital. Same thing here. You've got compromised immune systems. You've got folks who are vulnerable. And so we've had to change the way we do business there. But also, especially in those few months that were considered the stay-at-home order months. I know we remember that. Gosh, we were all at home. We were all figuring out how to do what we do. There were a lot of individuals in our community, a lot of elderly individuals, the 65 and up, who were concerned about leaving their homes. They didn't have family that could make runs for them. And so we saw an opportunity to really grow a program that came to us roughly a year ago in the FoodNet Food Bank. So FoodNet was a program that was started in 1986 by Marcel Citron. Marcel Citron here in Lafayette, she was the founder of Hub City Ford. She was a extremely philanthropic lady. Wish I would have known her when she was here.
Her daughter Michelle and I went to college together.
Sisters.
Yeah, great family.
Wonderful family. And it's pretty cool to know that she started FoodNet when the first oil bust happened in the mid 80s. There were families who had lost their jobs and were having to make that decision between putting food on the table and paying bills. What an awful decision to have to make, especially when maybe a few weeks before, maybe a month before, you'd have never expected to be in that situation. So she creates this program, and through some conversations with the board and just sharing that mission of providing food for those who are truly in need, we took it on. And so we knew we were going to eventually use FoodNet in order to serve a wider need outside of just that downtown area that we've operated for almost 40 years. And so here comes COVID. And so FoodNet Food Bank became a place where we could we could make large purchases from local retailers, and then using volunteers and doing it in a safe manner, take those packages of food and either run them directly to the doorstep of individuals in our wider community who didn't have family, couldn't get out, scared to get out, or providing those packages of food to food pantries, which if you kind of look at the breakdown of a food bank, something like Second Harvest Food Bank, they will warehouse food. They will accumulate food either from national retailers, grocery stores, food drives, and then they will help out the smaller pantries. The smaller pantries maintain the relationships with people in their little community, and they're usually set up in rural areas or places where folks have a hard time getting food. And so these smaller food pantries were starting to get the phone calls and have the need, new people calling in. And so this was a truly beautiful effort, especially in that stay-at-home time period, where we engaged the community in a new way. We came up with a program called the 7-Day Staples Project. And so we asked the community to support in small increments, $10 here, $20 here, knowing that roughly $35 could help us purchase a 7-day supply of food for someone who was trying to make ends meet, trying to get from here to there. A lot of these folks had either lost their jobs, they had their hours cut, they were furloughed, and so it was a true need. And so here for those who were listening, those who were out in the community who maybe weren't experiencing that need at the time, they were thinking, man, this is a concrete way for me to help someone in my community. And so actually it was the middle of April, we did an all-day virtual food drive with KLFY. We raised $300,000 to help provide food. And to this day, we are still providing. Yesterday, we had 620 of those 7-day supply packages that left our facility and went out to the 8 parishes around to assist people who are still struggling. So yeah, it's been tough, but in disaster, opportunities present themselves to be community to those who are around you. And so that was a way that we had to kind of mold and shift. Another thing that was a concern of ours from the very beginning, number one was food. Number two was those who were at risk of losing their homes. You lose your job, you have your hours cut, you're furloughed, things are happening, you can't go to work. There are just too many families out there who are scraping to make by. And so what happens is federal government has an eviction moratorium where you can't be evicted from your home or from your apartment. But it's not that your rent and your utility bills are being they're not being forgiven. They're just being deferred. And so we're every month we are just kicking this little can down the road. To a place. It's adding up and adding up to a point for a lot of these individuals where it is too much to catch up on. And so we were seeing bubbling right under the surface a true homelessness crisis, where something that Lafayette has never seen before, something where you see it in big cities. I mean, the presence of children on the street with their mothers. These are the kind of things that we were trying to head off at the pass. And what you need for that is financial assistance to keep people in their homes. This is called homelessness prevention. If you're used to having 250 to 300 individuals who are in some kind of process of experiencing homelessness, it is way too much for the small number of homelessness providers here in Lafayette to handle that number growing to 400, 500, and 600. especially knowing that traditional sense of sheltering is not available anymore, at least not right now. So we have focused a lot of attention on one of our keynote programs at Catholic Charities. It's the Monsignor Seguir Center. The Monsignor Seguir Center is actually named after our founder. He is a gentleman. His name was Father Seguir. He and my grandfather were actually pilots together. They were good friends, which was really neat. My grandfather died when I was much younger, but to know that story later in life, it's really full circle for me personally. But he was made pastor in the early 70s of St. Genevieve Church, which is on the north side of town. And didn't take long for him to start to see the need in that neighborhood, in that community. And a lot of it was focused around people who they found themselves in a financial crisis. Something came about, a death in the family. They had to fix their car to get to work, and now they can't pay for this and that. And so he started doing financial assistance. In history says, the legend shows that it was in a tent on Evangeline Thruway. And so he'd have certain days a week where people would walk up and he would help them out. He'd help them pay their bills. And so that was really the birth of what was Lafayette Catholic Service Centers, which is now today Catholic Charities of Acadiana. And so we're actually seeing what we usually get about 70 to 75 phone calls a day outside of COVID times. Now we're getting 250 to 300 phone calls per day about people who are in true need and at risk of losing their homes. So there's been a lot of focus placed on trying to get the right financial resources to help those. It also takes caseworkers. It takes people who are ready to get into the minutia and the really into the weeds about making sure that we're doing what is right. Charity is not charity when we're just wasting resources and throwing money out into the streets. That's not going to help anybody. What we truly want to do is make sure that we are providing what is right and what is best for that individual. Too many stories, just knowing that we've got a finite pot of money to work with, and that we want to make sure that we're helping those who are most at risk of entering homelessness, because it is far cheaper to keep somebody in their home than it is to have them enter that experience of homelessness and work their way back. Far also less traumatic for the individual.
That is amazing. And you're just talking about the generosity of people who gave on that one single day. Mm-hmm. I know that you were able to get some other donations from the Breeze Foundation. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. And so again, disaster presents opportunity. So Drew Brees, of course, came to New Orleans in 2006, right? It was a year after Katrina. Mm-hmm. And he came, there was questions about his shoulder, man. Sean Payton went out and said, hey, I'm going to see what I can do with this guy. And sure enough, look, he's a future Hall of Famer. But he has always been generous to the greater New Orleans area in South Louisiana. His philanthropic goals have always kind of revolved around providing food and providing, especially for children. And so that, I think that's what kicked off a relationship between Drew Brees and the Second Harvest Food Bank. Well, Second Harvest Food Bank and Catholic Charities of Acadiana, we've conversed for years about how can we find some partnerships with each other that make sense. And so Second Harvest, they've had a presence in Lafayette for many years. They wanted to start a community kitchen here, and we said, "Oh, we already have a community kitchen. Let's see what we can do together." So COVID starts, and they come to the table along with Drew Brees, and they propose this investment. What if we can invest in St. Joseph Diner, which for our listeners, St. Joseph Diner has been there since 1980, let's say 82, 83. outside of COVID times, we're serving 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, roughly 300 meals per day for folks who can come to the diner. So it's folks in the neighborhood, folks who are experiencing homelessness. We've got college kids. We've got folks who work in the neighborhood who come. So knowing that now you've got the Drew Brees Foundation, along with a partnership with Second Harvest, who wants to make a sizable investment in growing the capacity of St. Joseph Diner, growing it from a place where we were serving 300 meals a day to roughly 2,100 meals a day. Okay, that's a lot. I mean, they want to grow that thing seven, 8 to 8 times, more than what we had before. But it's things that we just couldn't have done on our own. You hear the phrase, we're better together. The things that, and the investment that Second Harvest brought in with these machines and all of these appliances, the ability to prepare meals on a larger scale, package those meals, seal the meals, but like how to warm it up and those kind of things on the meals, and then tapping into the Second Harvest distribution network that has been in place for years, getting these meals out to, like right now, a lot of them to hotels, starting with Hurricane Laura, getting those meals out to the storm affected areas to the southwest part of the state. There's just a huge amount of growth that we're seeing from this partnership, and something that we could not have done on our own.
Wow, it's just amazing. And I think about the programs that y'all are having to go through, increase the donations and the work you're doing while you're getting this decreased support, other than, I get that there's a big donation from Breeze and a big donation on that one day of giving, but overall, you're not talking about people regularly putting their hands out because they're being furloughed, they're losing their jobs. I mean, it's tough, and I cannot believe all the work y'all have been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time.
It's encouraging to know that even when everyone is struggling, there is still such generosity. And listen, we don't take it for granted. We want to be the best stewards of what folks are doing in terms of contributing to our organization. You talked earlier about fundraising events. We don't do many events. We're really grateful that we have a lot of individuals who give at all levels on a monthly basis. That recurring giving cycle really helps an organization to budget, to know, like, okay, if we've got 1,000 people that give a certain amount every month, we can take that and we can honor what they have designated to give to, because you may be really interested in providing meals, but the idea of providing financial assistance for someone in their home, it's not that it's bad. You just that doesn't really, excite you. It's great. We can take your donation and put it right towards here, but we can look at that, and being a responsible organization that doesn't want to outdo what we've got, we can build out that program knowing that we've got that firm support on a monthly basis. But we've had to get real creative about reaching out. Like we can't get together and have the in-person events, at least for right now. But look, those who have provided for us for years, they understand. And especially those who are, I'm just going to say 50 on up. We want to be responsible about what's going on right now. Right. If you'd have asked me in March how long this was going to last, I'd have told you a couple months. Right. But I was wrong. So
I think we were all wishing that was the right answer.
That's right. That's true. It's just true.
So y'all do have a few things people can do, right? So obviously they can donate today. I don't know that we're going to raise $300,000 for you, but there are links in the comments where people can go as a part of the Mighty Cause Day and donate. We would really appreciate that. And then you mentioned they can make a regular monthly donation that's like scheduled out. So forego a dinner or a couple of cups of coffee and give a little, because it can help so many other people.
It is. The idea of giving, if somebody says, hey, what's my $5 going to do? That's not going to do anything. I understand where your thought process, because I've felt it myself. But your $5 coupled with the $5 from 100 other people, not only is that making a real difference in a program in someone's life, but you're not doing it alone. Right. You're doing it along with other people, and so that collective impact is extremely powerful. And let me just kind of harp on our current juggle right now, which is Hurricane Laura. We're in the middle of a prolonged disaster, which we have treated the COVID pandemic as a disaster from the very beginning. It absolutely is. It is a disaster of epic proportions, that which folks who are experiencing this crisis right now never would have expected to be in. But you just lump right on top of that. And 2020 can do that for you if you let it. You just lump a major hurricane. The meteorologists have said that this is the strongest, largest hurricane to hit Louisiana in recorded history. And just because it didn't produce the CNN style disaster that you saw with Katrina, I mean, I'm glad it didn't, okay? Because we don't want to go through that again. But the folks from, Lafayette, St. Landry Parish, Vermilion Parish on back this way, on toward Lake Charles, a lot of these individuals are going to be dealing with this for a very, very long time. And so the having to start, the juggling process, I guess it didn't, you get this far into 2020 and you realize, okay, this is just how it's going to go. But we were already ready for this. We get ready for hurricane season. We train year round with our disaster department with Rebuilding Together Acadiana, which is a new program for Catholic Charities. And so we were able to jump right into action doing debris removal, which especially in our area, that was a huge part and still is. We've got 3 crews in Crowley today that are doing debris removal. You think, well, a tree fell, limb fell, just cut it out. Like we've said earlier, if you're elderly, if you don't have family, if you don't have anywhere to turn, who's going to do it for you? So it's a great way to engage volunteers in the community who kind of feel like, man, I got to do something. Well, great. We put you on those chainsaw crews, put you on those tarping crews to get out there and to truly help people. And so we've been very excited to do that. We're also in lockstep coordination with our sister agency in Lake Charles, Sister Miriam McLean, who is a wonderful lady. She is a nun with the Daughters of Mercy. She's about this tall, but she drives a refrigerated 18-wheeler. She's just fantastic.
Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed by that. Did she sit on a phone book? Like, how does she
Oh
fix
yeah.
the pedals?
Oh look, she's great. I'll send you a picture.
Please.
She's great. She's from, I believe she is from Michigan, but she's only been in South Louisiana for a few years. And so this definitely her first hurricane. But we've been helping out. We've been making several runs per day from our warehouse here in Lafayette, running in-kind donations and things that other areas have shipped here. We're making sure to get them all ready and moving them along when they're ready, to make sure to not overwhelm those who are responding. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so the idea of fundraising for a disaster, the reason that when these big disasters hit, you see, well, Superstorm Sandy hit the East Coast, the wildfires hit over here. You see these huge Red Cross, Salvation Army, these campaigns where people are like, hey, we need your help now. The reason is because typically about 4 to 6 weeks after a disaster, people stop giving.
Right.
People stop giving. It's out of the news cycle. But these organizations have to use that money that they raised in that short period of time, and they have to make that work for the next 8 to 10 years.
Right.
And so we're still in that process right now of raising money for Catholic Charities disaster response. So actually, our Mighty Cause page that we set up for this specific podcast is focusing on disaster response, because it's still in the forefront. You go take a drive to Houston and ride through Lake Charles, as far as you can see on both sides of the road, whether it's low income homes or the most expensive homes in Louisiana, blue tarps, right, nestled right next to piles of rubble.
Right.
It is, pictures don't do it justice. Go see it for yourself. There's individuals right now, we're 5 weeks past the landfall of the hurricane. They still don't have power.
Which means they don't have AC. I mean, come on.
I know. And it's beautiful outside today, but I mean, this is the second prettiest day of the year.
Well, you're talking about 100 degrees for 5 weeks that they've been living in. And so talk about the mildew in their houses now, because there's no AC, no food, no ice.
Yep. And so that initial disaster response that we're involved in right now, it includes mucking out a home that had surge water, getting the trees removed, tarping out the roofs, assessing the damage. Eventually, very soon, we will move into what's called long-term recovery. Long-term recovery is going in there with volunteer crews and doing the mold remediation, doing the redoing the floors and redoing the sheetrock, and helping out where we can, because a lot of these individuals, though they will get a certain amount of help from FEMA and associated programs, it's not always that you can make that work for for the issues that you have. Right. People are not made whole overnight. And so we through our Rebuilding Together program, we've been able to take the little that's given, couple it with donated supplies, couple it with volunteer labor, and really help people get back on their feet quicker. And it's wonderful. And this is something we pride ourselves in through Catholic Charities, is that marathon effort of long-term recovery. We pride ourselves on being the marathon runner that will run till the very, very end. And with disaster in the beginning, you got everyone here. Everybody's coming and it's wonderful. It's great. You're almost running on adrenaline. And then slowly but surely, you've got crews that run off to other disasters or run back home. Yeah, I got to go do these. And I get it. But then toward the end, there's a few players right there in the end. And so we want to be that player for South Louisiana. We want to build our capacity to respond to whatever comes next. Gosh.
Well, it took 4 years at least to recover from the floods of 16. It took 10 years plus to recover from Katrina and Rita. And so this is going to be at least a 10-year recovery.
Yep.
And so you're right. We're only 5 weeks into a 10-year recovery.
That's right. That's right. And let's harp on news cycles for a while. What else do we have going on in the national picture right now? I mean, we've got the worldwide pandemic. We've got an election year. We've got social unrest. We have all these things. So wildfires, jinx. But this is a blip, and it's unfortunate that it was. But like the mayor of Lake Charles, Nick Hunter, he said, if the government, local and state government, had not done the job that they did, which I commend them for, in communicating how bad this could have been in terms of the toll on human life. What did they say? They said the storm surge could be 20 to 25 feet, which would be unsurvivable.
Right. That graphic. Did you see that Weather Channel graphic?
Yes.
Because that was the most impactful thing I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The 3D thing where the guy was standing there.
that thing gave me nightmares, and I wasn't even in the state at the time. And I thought, this is crazy town.
Nope.
So no, they did an amazing job for human life, but you can't evacuate your house. You can't take your house. I mean, unless you have a mobile home, you can't take it with you on the road. So all that destruction still happened. We just also didn't have the despair of human life. So people can go right now to your Mighty Cause page, which is in the Facebook comments, and they can give and donate and help support your efforts, because those efforts are going to have to go far past these 5 weeks.
Indeed.
Y'all need funds.
Indeed, we do. And so we're grateful. So we certainly need the resources to continue responding to all of these disasters right now, which is that is our mission. That is what we are here to do. Also, we have a need for volunteers, whether it is volunteers to help us at St. Joseph Diner with that essential disaster response of providing meals to those who are experiencing homelessness and those who are surviving disaster. But also on our Rebuilding Together disaster response teams and lining up our long-term recovery teams for the future. We are pretty much running teams 7 days a week. So whether you want to get out and swing a chainsaw, help with a blue tarp team, or you want to help in our warehouse, we have things that are coming in. People are buying things on Amazon, buying things locally, and having them either shipped or delivered to our warehouse here in Lafayette. And we need folks to help us in there. We also, if you have a truck and or a trailer, you don't need the trailer, but the trailer helps, and you'd like to make hot shot trips. I like to use that oil field technology or terminology. Make a hotshot trip to Lake Charles to bring things from us to the Catholic Charities of Southwest Louisiana warehouse. We would love to have you. We had 3 trucks that left this morning to go bring things to Sister Miriam. They drop it off, you come on back. But the trip takes an hour and 15 minutes there. But it's educational to make that trip. To see the devastation and to know that what you're doing is you are one part of a machine that is out there, trying to provide true relief.
Right. It's just amazing to me when I think about all of the people that need your help and the ways y'all are serving them. So I challenge you, if you are listening or watching this and you can't physically show up and serve, you can donate. Find some way to support this cause, because our neighbors need us today just like we're going to need them tomorrow. And so we've got to be able to help out everybody, whether they're suffering from the global pandemic or from the hurricane. There is a way to help them recover.
Indeed.
So I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Rob Kirkpatrick's comment, which I believe now more than ever, as he wrote, "The world needs more Ben Broussard."
Rob, I love you, Rob. You're a good man. Thank you.
I mean, come
I'll
on.
buy you lunch.
I mean, right? Ben, this is the least amount of talking I've done in 45 minutes all day.
This is great.
You did an amazing job of telling the story of Catholic Charities, the history, all of the partners, all of the work you're doing. I just got to sit back and drink some water and listen, because it's amazing.
I wanted to give you a break, because I know that you've been talking since 3:00 in the morning. This was your break.
That was awesome. I appreciate that.
You fall asleep, and so for those,
you did great.
No, you were in there. So thank you, Jackie.
Thank you
being here.
Listen, Ben, thank you. And thank you to everybody at Catholic Charities for all the work that you're doing and all of the people that you're helping. I don't think there's any community that has solved the homeless crisis, but I am proud to be a part of a community that's working so hard to help everyone who finds themselves in that situation. And I know this is going to be our worst year ever because of the pandemic. And so I appreciate all of y'all are doing to help out.
Thank you, Jackie. We're starting from the bottom. We're coming up from here.
Hey, we got to do what we got to do. And thank you to everyone who's watched and been a part of it. Y'all stick around because in our next hour, we're going to be talking to Healing House about all the work that they're doing and how the global pandemic has affected them and how you can help them through this day. So thank you all, and come back in a few minutes. Thanks, Ben.
Bye, y'all.
When the day is through.